Good afternoon from the city of Seattle. We are here for this special broadcast. Good afternoon from the city of Seattle. We are here today to welcome Attorney WIL MORRIS. I have been telling you guys for the better part of the last 3 weeks, that Attorney Morris, who's the lead attorney in a multi-billion dollars class action lawsuit against NOVATECH and some of the other related companies, and also other defendants who are part of that alleged Ponzi scheme. So we're going to have Attorney Morris, who's going to talk a little bit about the case, what to expect. I know many of you have a lot of questions, so this is going to be about an hour and 15 minutes. So if you do have a question, please do ask your question. I have someone here who would certainly read the questions, and Mr. Morris will address the question as much as he can. Now, I want to remind every viewers, especially those of you who are new to the channel, NOVATECH started out back in 2019. And from 2019 to at least May of 2023, it has estimated that NOVATECH had collected from people around the world approximately $47 billion. When NOVATECH shut down in May of 2023, there were a total of 552,000 people who have invested their hard-earned money in NOVATECH. Certainly, this is one of the biggest Ponzi scheme ever, and a lot of people from around the world lost a lot of money. And this is not just Canada, the United States, France, but there are people from Africa, Mexico, Panama. I have been investigating this case for the better part of a year, and I have spoken to many of these people who lost billions of dollars through NOVATECH. So this matter, NOVATECH as a company and some of its principles, some of its principles, are now being investigated by the Federal Trade Commission, and some of them have received subpoena to answer a question, and they have not, as far as I know, there are 3 separate investigations being conducted by two federal agency and 1 state agency. The Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, has been investigating NOVATECH. The Federal Trade Commission have been investigating NOVATECH, and the FBI as well are investigating NOVATECH and some of the NOVATECH's principle. Mr. Morris, which I would introduce him very shortly, is an attorney with decades of experience in litigating this sort of cases, and he is the lead attorney in this multi-billion dollars class action lawsuit against NOVATECH. So without further ado, I want to bring Mr. Morris on. But before I do, I want to let you know, guys, if you do have questions, please do ask them. But do not ask the same question. Read the board to see if the question hasn't been asked before. And certainly, if the question's been asked, you will get an answer. So we're going to try to make this as informative as possible. We're going to try to make this as important as possible so that you can ask your question. This is for you. This is for my viewers. I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to hear directly from the attorney. So there's going to be a lot of information. So I suggest that you take a pen to probably write things down as they are being said. Without further ado, let me bring Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good to see you.
Very good to see you. I like the bow tie.
That's my trademark these days.
I like that. You know what they say? A good trial lawyer always wear a good bow tie.
There you go. There you go. And not only that, not only a good bow tie, one tied from scratch, by the way.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for joining the professor today, and certainly for my viewers who are investors of NOVATECH. So let's tell, for people who don't know you, why don't
Right.
you tell the viewer a little bit about your background, your professional career, and where
Right.
you are now?
Sure. 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 I was originally born. Actually, I was born in South America, a country called Guyana, and I moved to the United States when I was 19 years old. Attended college in New York, then went to University of Miami Law School, where I graduated in '91. From that time, from the time I graduated, I started working at a firm called Baker McKenzie in New York, which at the time, I'm not quite sure it still is, at the time was the largest law firm in the world. Had offices in 50 odd countries and employed almost 2,000 lawyers. So I was there for 3 years. I left there and came and worked at a little boutique firm in Miami called Two Beasley. The great Tom Two was the leader of that firm. There, I stayed a couple of years. Then I moved on to another firm called Issacoff and Ragatz. I stayed there for a couple of years, and then in '99, I decided to open my own firm, and I've been on my own ever since. I've taken on a couple of partners. Taken on 50, 60 employees at one point. Now I've streamlined, and I'm concentrating now on these class action lawsuits because I think that's my legacy. That's my calling. And
Well,
there we are.
well, I thank you so much because you are doing a really great service to people, especially people that have been scammed, and there are a lot of people that have been scammed. Now,
Yeah.
today we're going to talk about two things, mainly Novatech, which is this is the
Okay.
big Corona in the room, but we also will talk a little bit about Emini FX because I understand that your law firm is also
Sure. Sure.
representing the plaintiff in the Emini FX case. So let's start with Novatech. How did you come to be the attorney for the plaintiff?
Well, it's funny because of the M&FX case, which have a lot of similarities to the Novatech case, in the sense it involved scammers, it involved crypto, and it involved a Ponzi scheme. Because of the filing of that lawsuit, people started calling me about the Novatech situation, and we investigated, looked into it, and said, you know what, this is the same situation as M&FX, and so we decided to file a lawsuit. Contrary to what we've done in the M&FX case, we decided not to file it in Florida, but to file it in New York. It was a strategic legal move, and so we filed the Novatech lawsuit in New York. But it was primarily based on people complaining that they've lost tons of money. Now, in the NFX case, there was we thought it was $500, $600 million in that people lost because of this Ponzi scheme. In the Novatech case, we originally thought it was about $2 billion, and that's what we put in our lawsuit. But we've gotten some information within the last couple of days, couple of weeks, that we are off. Our number is so off we're off by about 40 billion, we were told. So you can imagine it's a lot bigger than we initially thought. Going in, we thought our number was conservative, 2 billion, but we didn't think it was that conservative. Not 40 billion, sure, but that it is what it is. I mean, and it's our intent to go after every penny we can muster, and every penny we can find and turn over, and try to get people back to almost being whole. It's going to be difficult to guarantee anybody to be made whole. But what we can tell you is this: if you do nothing, if you don't get involved, you stand a chance of getting nothing. If you get involved, it'll cost you nothing. You get involved in a lawsuit, and you stand a chance of getting something. Look, quite frankly, I'm spending my own money, I'm borrowing monies in order to prosecute these lawsuits. So I'm not doing them because I have nothing better to do. I am doing it because I believe that there's a possibility there's going to be recovery, that people will be able to get some monies back. Again, I'm not guaranteeing anybody's going to be made whole, but there will be an opportunity to collect something back from the losses they sustained.
Well, this lawsuit, as I investigated and read on what's going on, this is a gigantic worldwide Ponzi scheme. There were hundreds of thousands of people from Africa to South America, from all 7 continents. So I mean, there are people around the world who's wondering, how can I become part of this lawsuit? I mean, because I don't live in America. So what would you say to these people who live, let's say, in Panama or Mexico or some other countries?
Well, the same way, location is not a factor. We invite everyone to go to willmorrislaw.com and register and become part of it. It doesn't, regardless of where you are. I know there's been a little glitch in the website regarding people from other countries other than America being able to put their cities and whatnot. And I think we've addressed that and fixed that issue. So it really doesn't matter where you're from. Get on the website, register, willmorrislaw.com. It costs you nothing. We're not charging anybody anything. And we just need your information to make sure you become part of the class. What we will do with that information, at some point, somebody from the firm or a company that we hire will get in touch with these people individually, either by email or by phone calls. We'll send them out retainers. We'll put updates on the website. We'll let them know what's going on. And so that's how you can get involved. It doesn't take anything other than registering and putting your name and your information. We're not asking for anybody's social security number. I know some people, as a matter of fact, I was in my office yesterday and somebody just showed up because we made the cardinal mistake of putting the law firm's main phone number on the press release. And so we've been inundated with phone calls. I mean, literally every 30 seconds the phone rings and somebody's on there wanting to find out about NOVATECH. So we did this recording telling people what they need to do. They need to go to willmorrislaw.com and register. We've been telling them not to leave messages. And so the person who showed up yesterday has been calling. They registered on the website. They've been calling and not getting any answer because, quite frankly, we're not answering the phone like that. And so they showed up in my office yesterday. I very rarely in the office at 11 o'clock on a Saturday. They showed up in my office just to make sure that I wasn't a scam, which I thought was ironic. I thought it was ironic. I said, not to knock them because I understand how people got duped. Not to knock them, but if they sort of implement that same sort of due diligence before they invested in NOVATECH, maybe they wouldn't have lost their money. But they came to my office to make sure I existed. I wasn't a scam. I was a real lawyer. Yeah, I was a real lawyer. I sat them down for half an hour and talked to them. I think they left convinced that I was for real.
Well, I mean, you're doing a really good work because it's not an easy case to do. So we've got all these people all over the world. You were saying that they could go to the website willmorrislaw.com and then there they can fill out the form to tell you about them.
Well, let me just clarify something. On that website, there's two tabs, one for the M&E-FX case and the other one for NOVATECH. It depends on which case you're registering on. You click on that tab. Now, there's been a problem. Some people complaining that, like for example, in the NOVATECH tab, there's a question asking about church affiliation. Mm-hmm. Primarily that question is for the M&E-FX case, but it can also apply to NOVATECH to the extent that anybody from a religious organization, a pastor, or whomever convinced or was peddling or was promoting NOVATECH, then that information might be helpful. But to the extent that you didn't get any church affiliation involvement, then just leave it, say NA, leave it blank and move on.
Very good, very good, very good, because I know people were asking about that. So, Attorney Morris, let's talk a little bit about the process. A lot of people are not familiar with the legal process. Why don't you kind of explain to them, because my understanding is this is going to take a little bit of time. This is not going to happen next week.
It's not. There's an old saying in the law that says the wheels of justice turn slow. There's also a saying that some great senator once says that the arc of justice tends to bend to the correct ways at some point. So it'll take a while. What we've done so far, we've filed a lawsuit. All right, that's the first step. We filed a lawsuit in the Southern District of New York. That lawsuit is sitting there, and we are in the process of amending that lawsuit because other theories have come to light, other defendants have come to light, and we need to amend that lawsuit. Once that lawsuit gets amended, we're then going to start the process of actually serving the individual defendants. It's called service of process. A process server has to go to their house or where they live or where they work or whatever and serve them personally. And that process is in and of itself time consuming, not to mention expensive, but so that's what the process is right now. Once that lawsuit gets amended and served, then the defendants will then have 20 days from the time they get served to file a response to the lawsuit. Once they do that, and they can file an answer, or they can file a motion to dismiss, or whatever have you. Generally, in these big cases like this, lawyers for the defendants normally like to file a motion to dismiss. And we have to litigate that issue when the court decides what it decides, and an answer has to be filed. Then we can start the discovery process. And the discovery process in a big case like this involving so many defendants and so many potential class members could be huge and long and drawn out. It's quite possible this thing could go on for a while. I'd hate to speculate right now, but it's not going to happen in a year. It's probably not going to happen in 2 years. But it's a process. And I said before, the wheels of justice turn real slow.
But it turns eventually.
It turns eventually. It does turn eventually.
Now, let's talk a little bit about one of the things that I've heard from people, because I do the show, The Professor, and we are focusing mainly on investigating crypto fraud. And I've heard from people who said, why is the lawyer suing all of these people? Why do we have all this defendant in the lawsuit? Some people claim, well, I was just an ambassador, or I was just somebody who was recruiting people. My name is now being, I'm being sued now, but I wasn't part of NOVATECH. I wasn't inside. I wasn't in the kitchen cooking.
Right, let me allay some of the concerns. To the extent you're merely an investor or merely somebody who suggested to somebody else to invest in NOVATECH, we're not interested in you. You're not our concern. What we're concerned about are people who we call serial scammers, serial Ponzi schemers, the people who are actively out there peddling and promoting and soliciting people to invest in NOVATECH. These are the people who help. Because let's think about it, how a Ponzi scheme works. A Ponzi scheme is only as good as new money coming in. You're essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul. So what happens initially, somebody sets up a Ponzi scheme. They say, listen, you invest a certain amount of money, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about how to recognize when something is really a Ponzi scheme. But anyway, a person comes in and says, look, invest this money, and we're gonna give you 3% a year, a week return, which is in and of itself a ridiculous promise. Because I'm not very good at math, most lawyers are not. But if you do the math, 3% a week, it's about 144% a year. Who does that? Nobody does that. Nobody gets that kind of return. You just don't. And the old adage is, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't. That should be the first warning sign. Nobody gets 144% return on investment. Think about it. Remember the real estate bust back in 2009? Real estate was always thought of as being the most solid investment there is. And then next thing you know, people are upside down in their houses. Their houses are worth less than they owe the bank. If that could happen to the housing market, the most secure investment, always been told, invest in real estate. It's going to double in 7 years. It's going to have a return on it. You're going to have equity. If that could happen to that, it could happen to any other investment. So anybody promising you that you're going to get 3%, no matter what the market, that's the other thing. No matter what the market does, you're getting 3%. How is that possible? How is that possible? If the market tanks, how are you going to pay 3%? Where does this money come from? Well, in a Ponzi scheme, it's not coming from an investment. It's coming from new money. People who are recruiting other people to put money into the scheme. So the guy who comes in initially, he always makes money, right?
Right.
He has to make money in order to flash it to his friends and say, oh, this is the greatest thing, And they're trying to get in. If you listen, the bottom line of Ponzi scheme, you get in on the top, you will make money. It's the guys who get in on the bottom. When the money stops flowing in, when the new money stops coming in, and no money can be paid, and they're telling you not to take your money out, and the bottom falls out because new money's not coming in, guess what? The Ponzi scheme then collapses. It implodes. So this is what happened with NOVATECH. I don't know if I answered your question. I sort of kind of forgot.
No. You have, because people were concerned that they're being sued.
Right. So it is the serial Ponzi schemers that are interested. The people who are out there promoting, the people who are out there, making millions of it. We know one guy made $3 million. We know a couple of guys who made a couple $1 million. So yeah, if you're in early enough, you will make money. But that's the whole purpose of the Ponzi scheme, so you can go out there and peddle it. It's the people who go out there peddling with the knowledge that it was a Ponzi scheme, knowing fully well no investments are being made, that the new money is being used to pay people who put money in first. So those are the people we're going after, not the little guy who convinced his wife or his cousin or his next door neighbor to get to invest. We're not going after them. As a matter of fact, we're trying to get them paid.
Right. In other words, what you're saying is there are people who have gone from one Ponzi scheme to another.
Right.
For example, if you remember AWS,
Right.
Cynthia Petion,
He was there.
husband, and a lot of other defendants that I see in the lawsuit were part of AWS.
I believe Eddie was there as well, right?
Right. And AWS was a similar Ponzi scheme that actually fell through sometime in 2019. And then that was followed by NOVATECH.
Right, right. And for some reason, it seems to be the same. You know, remember that movie, The Usual Suspects? The usual set of guys doing the same thing, just with a different hat and a different name. Oh, let me explain something about the 1 to 500 defendants. The reason we said 1 to 500 defendants is because, quite frankly, we don't know who these guys are. We're hoping that somewhere down the line that we're going to figure out who all the enablers were. I mean, the serious enablers, not the little guy who, like I said before, suggested it to his next door neighbor or his friend on the street. We're not interested in that. That's not the guys we're talking about, because, you know, those guys, chances are not serial Ponzi schemers. They just saw an investment opportunity, saw that they could make some money for themselves, and suggested it to somebody else. You know, look at the fact that it was a scam. They got scammed too. So that's not the guys.
So they're not. Now, another question. People are saying, what is the likelihood of recovery? Because apparently now we know, based on investigation, that Cynthia Petion collected close to 50 billion.
Right.
And all of this asset, I call them asset, were collected in terms of Bitcoin. So in other words, people were buying Bitcoin and transferred that Bitcoin to a coin payment system and then to NOVATECH. Right. So that Bitcoin is sitting somewhere in some account somewhere in Europe.
That's the problem with Bitcoins. You know, listen, you're like, if I give you $1, for example, right, and you're going to spend it, it'll be hard for me to track that dollar where you spend it. You know what I mean? Right. But the Bitcoins is a different story. Bitcoins is always a record. That's what the blockchain is all about. It's always a record of every transaction. So it can be traced where that Bitcoin is. It's sitting somewhere.
Right.
It's not, you know, so nobody went in the backyard and burned the Bitcoin. You can't do that, right?
No,
you didn't lose it on the street. You didn't lose your dollar on the street. You can't do that. It's there somewhere. And it's just a matter of tracing it. So, yeah, there's a possibility. Quite frankly, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think there was. There's a possibility of a return. Or it's just a matter of tracing the same way you transferred your Bitcoins to NOVATECH. It's the same way you can figure out where that Bitcoin is currently sitting.
Well, I know that. I'm glad you say that, because in the EMINI-FX case, the CEO, Eddie Alexson, was holding a Bitcoin account in Estonia that has over $200 million.
I remember that. And the SEC
took they got a hold of it.
FTC took 160 of it.
Exactly. So there is
they didn't take 160 of it. That's what it was valued at the time of the sale. If they held on to today, it'll probably be worth 250 million.
That's true though. At the time it was 200 million. By the time they liquidated it, it was 160 million. And now crypto is up. It could have been more. So are you saying, Attorney Morris, that there is a likelihood that your office, your investigators can find where the assets are, where the money is?
Yes, we're working with a team of with some investigators. We're going to be working hand in hand with them. Their expertise is to track down Bitcoins or cryptocurrency. Right. That's their expertise. And like I was explaining a minute ago, to the extent a transaction happened and a Bitcoin went somewhere, there's a record of it. There's a record of where it went. No matter how many jumps it takes, there's a record of where it went. So yeah, I think there is a strong possibility of a recovery, because Bitcoins, unlike ordinary money, is easily traceable.
Okay.
Remember those old movies, or those criminal movies when the police or the law enforcement is trying to set somebody up, they mark the bills. You know, remember that? You have to mark the bills, go to a little red dot or something on it to mark them. You don't have to do that with Bitcoin. It's a transaction caught up in a blockchain that can be traced.
Right, it's all in the computer somewhere, in the internet somewhere, and you'll be able to trace to see where the money. Because one of the things that I thought was very helpful is that there is something called an e-wallet, and people use the e-wallet to trade, to buy Bitcoin, to transfer Bitcoin, to make payment through the e-wallet. Now, is that something you want the people who are part of, who actually was invested in?
Right, that's part of what we're going to need. We're going to need the wallets. to really trace what happened with a particular set of Bitcoin, we need to know the e-wallet you traded it from. From that, the investigators can figure out where it went and where it's currently sitting and where it's landing. So yes, we're going to need all that information. Again, we're going to be contacting the individual people who signed up on the website, willmorrislaw.com, and we'll begin contacting them. We're going to get more information from them, and we're going to go from there. I mean, look, it's going to be a process. It's going to be a long, drawn-out process. But yes, it's traceable and it can be done.
Okay. So now we have a question from somebody in South Africa who asked, what can they expect from the legal system here? In other words, are they going to be part of the lawsuit? Can they be part of the class if they live in South Africa?
Sure. As I don't know if you were here earlier, I was saying that this Novatech scam was worldwide, reached, it was international. And that's the reason why it was this big and successful. It was an international, and anybody who was hurt, regardless of where they are, they should go to the website and register, and they can become part of the class.
Okay. So someone is asking, what are the next steps leading to individual recovery of fund? Now, I know it's a long step, but there are two things going on. There's your lawsuit in New York,
right? And
then we have the FTC investigating. And I always tell people, whenever the FTC is investigating, there's always a parallel investigation with the FBI.
Right, the FBI, exactly.
Right. The FTC and the FBI, they kind of work together. So we can assume that there is a criminal investigation. Now, that question is how long it would take. What is the process leading to people actually getting some money? Because in the FX case, people are still waiting to get money now.
I know. And that's been going on for a while.
Yes.
That's been going on for more than a year. And the receiver in that FX case is now in the process of garnering all the information about people who lost money. And somewhere down the line, he's going to come up with a formula how people get their money. I would imagine within before the end of the year, maybe, that FX case. With this particular case, I don't want to speculate. Look, the FTC, if FX is any indication or precedent of what's going to happen, I would imagine the Novatech will follow the same pattern. It'll take a year or two before, first you have to get a receiver established. You got to have the receiver go and collect monies. And the same thing we're doing, trace it. And it's quite possible it goes the same route that FX did, where the principal of FX cut a deal with the FTC, right? And turned over some of that 200 million Bitcoins that he had in exchange for getting a lighter sentence. So it's quite possible that's going to happen here. We don't know yet. It's gonna be a while. I hate to be boxed in and give a time frame, but it's not going to be a year. It's probably going to be closer to 2 years. It's going to be a while.
So in other words, people have to kind of be patient.
Have to be patient. I know. Again, I know people have been waiting for us to get a hold of them, but again, we've been inundated with calls. My phone rang every 30 seconds for the past month, and it's always somebody from wanting to be part of the lawsuit, wanting information on Novatech, and we promised everybody we're going to get back to them. So you can imagine. I don't know what the number is at this point. We have thousands and thousands of people to call back, and we'll get around to you. But again, we'll be putting, updates on the website. You'll know what's going on. Right now, there's really no update to give other than say, look, we're going to file an amended complaint. We're changing the theory, added some defendants. We're changing things around a little bit based on our investigation, which revealed no information. We're going to be changing things around, and we're going to be adding stuff to the lawsuit. And we'll put that when we get that final amended complaint together, we'll post that on the website, and then where we are. But right now, there's really nothing to report. The lawsuit is practically, it's not even practically, since its infancy. It's still suckling on its mom. That's how young it is. Okay, so and in terms of how lawsuits go, it's the very, 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 very beginning. So a little patience is going to be required.
Now, is there any fee to join the lawsuit? Somebody asked that question. Is there a fee?
No, there isn't. There is none. It's strictly contingency. If we don't collect money for you, we take the loss. All the monies we've spent in prosecuting this claim, investigating and serving people, in litigating and flying around the country, we take that loss. Nobody else does. So yeah, it costs nothing to join.
Right. So they certainly this is all on contingency. Okay, guys, you're listening. There is no fee to join the lawsuit. If you want to join the lawsuit, you go to the website www.willmorrislaw.com and click on either.
Can I clarify something? When in the MENFX case, we originally thought of filing, charging a fee, and maybe 10 or 15 people did, and we changed our minds on it and refunded all those monies to those people that paid, and said, look, nobody has to pay anything, and to the extent you paid, here's your money back.
No, but that was in the MENFX. So
that's right. So we're not making that same mistake again this time around. We're not doing that, because it became administrative nightmare to return monies to people, which comes to find out we shouldn't have done it that way. So, but you live and you learn. So we're not making that same mistake again. We're not asking anybody who signs up a retainer on the NOVATECH case to pay any money whatsoever.
Perfect. Very good. So guys, there's no money to be paid. Now let's and I want to shift gear a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about how people can avoid that type of Ponzi scheme, because I know there are a lot of opportunities. There's always someone pushing some kind of get rich quick scheme, and they're talking about how if you're not holding crypto, you're gonna be poor for the rest of your life. The crypto space is very new.
Yeah, I listen. The scams involving crypto are at an all-time high. Starting with around the pandemic times, the amount of crypto scams have become it's actually become the number one scam out there. Crypto scams. The SEC said so. The Better Business Bureau said so. They're the number one scams involving crypto. Now, here's what I don't get. The people who have taken their U.S. dollars, bought crypto on a particular platform, where Coinbase, Crypto.com, whatever platform you bought your crypto on, they then took their crypto and transferred it to somebody else in exchange of a promise that they were going to give them their own sort of crypto. Anybody could create a crypto, and they're going to invest it, and you're not going to know where your money is being invested, and it's going to be in a pool, and you're going to get 3% interest right there and then. All kinds of bells should go off, and there's no risk involved. No risk involved. The minute somebody tells you it's a high yield with no risk, bell number one. First bell to ring. And you don't have to have any experience. We're going to do it all for you. And we have some secret way of doing it. We have some sort of robo thing, some IA. And we can't even explain to you what it is, but don't worry about it. It's a proprietary thing. Bell number two. Bell number 2 and 3. Right? And then when they say, well, we don't really give you paperwork, you could go on our website and see what's going on, and you can track your thing. No paperwork. Bell number 4. Then when you say, okay, I've invested $10,000, I've made $2,000, could I have my $2,000 profit? Oh no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Bell number 4. And by the time you get to bell number 4 or 5, it's too late for you. So the best thing to do is to investigate. You have to do your own due diligence. Now, people say, well, for example, crypto is not, there's still litigation going on with that crypto is indeed current securities.
Right.
It is or it isn't. That's not the point. The point is that the platforms where you buy crypto on are themselves regulated, right? They and if you're going to take your crypto and send it to somebody who's supposed to be an investor, sure, it's not regulated, right? It's crypto. You transfer your crypto. But if a person is telling you they're going to invest for you, that person needs to be registered.
I'm glad you, Attorney Morris, I'm glad you say that, because a lot of people believe that because the FTC said that crypto, Bitcoin, obviously, is a commodity. And they say, well, you don't need a license to trade commodity, which is true. But that is if you traded your own commodity.
That's correct. That is correct. But if you're telling people, give me all of your commodities, your Bitcoins, I'm going to pool it together and I'm going to invest in it, guess what? You are regulated. You have to be licensed. You have either federal or state or both. You have to be registered.
Now, let me ask you, Cynthia Petion, EDDY Petion, her husband, or NOVATECH, none of them were licensed.
None of them were licensed. None of them were licensed to sell securities. None of them were licensed to manage people's money and invest. None of them did not have it. and it would have been a simple matter to find out. You know, they're some of the enablers that we're going after. We have proof of them being on the internet, or being on YouTube, saying that these people, the company and these individuals are registered when they were not. They were.
In other words, they didn't have any license
They
at
didn't have
all
any license at
to take
all.
people's money to
invest.
Okay.
You have to get registered. You know, I mean, sure, the crypto is not as a commodity, they don't need to be registered. But if you start saying, give me your crypto and I'll invest it and give you a return on it, you have to be registered. Your company has to be registered.
So that anybody can buy their own crypto and trade
Sure.
it, no problem. If it's yours, you buy it, you trade.
It's the same way. It's the same way. Like if you, I don't know, in the stock market, if you want to day trade on your own, no problem. You do that all day. You know. So there's no regulation. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. There's nothing, same way. There's nothing stopping you from buying your bit. You know, the other thing I find interesting.
Yeah, there is a question by someone who said, "What proof do you have that the promoters knew that NOVATECH was a Ponzi scheme?"
Well, look, we don't have to prove they knew. You only have to prove they should have known. And to the extent that they were getting returns and they were that, and to the extent it could be imputed on them, they know there were no investments being made. It could be imputed on them that they knew that the monies that they were collecting were based on new monies coming in from new people who invested in NOVATECH. So yeah, listen, it's kind of tricky, but you know, it's not that difficult to do. You don't necessarily prove actual knowledge. You can prove circumstantially you should have known. You can't tell me that you don't know, particularly if you're a guy who's a serial Ponzi schemer. If you move from one Ponzi scheme to the next, you cannot, with a straight face, sit and tell a jury, "Oh, I didn't know it was a Ponzi scheme," because you knew that's what you do. That's how you make a living.
Exactly. That's like you are part of. That's kind of like something you've done before. And the question is, I agree with you. The question is, how could CYNTHIA Petion, EDDY Petion, or Ciceron, or any of the Dab Dunbar, any of the defendants can say that they didn't know this was a Ponzi scheme when they were previously involved in another similar Ponzi scheme that they knew went down? I mean, obviously they haven't learned their lesson. So I would like to see what a jury would say, or even the judge would say. Wait a second.
Listen, it would never get to that point. I mean, you know, you can't, because no lawyer in a straight face is going to say, "Oh, yeah, my client was involved with this other one and this other one and this other one." But guess what? This time he was totally innocent. He didn't know. He didn't know the fact that he was getting monies hand over fist and never seeing where any investments are being made. See, that's the key to a Ponzi scheme. Generally, no legitimate investments are being made. You know, it's different from like people think that I don't know, cryptocurrency is a scam within itself. But here's the difference to me. If you want to buy a Bitcoin, you take your money and buy one, right?
Right.
It costs $60,000 now, right? Tomorrow it goes up to $70,000. If you want to make your profit, guess what you got to do? You got to sell that which you have, right? Because somebody, and you have to find somebody who wants to pay $70,000 for it. So it's an exchange. You have one, you sell it, you make your profit. End the story. How is that a Ponzi scheme? Ponzi scheme is you give me your money, and I'll get other people to give money, and I'll pay you from that money. You're not selling anything. You're not buying anything. So crypto is kind of different, I think.
That's very good. This is some really, really great information. Now let's talk a little bit about the CYNTHIA Petion and EDDY Petion has done this before with AWS. And everyone now, obviously, they have not been seen in public, I believe, since 2023. There was a picture of a guy named Don Dunbar who actually went to Dubai to meet with CYNTHIA Petion. There were pictures.
You see that the influencer,
right? Influencers, right? So how do you serve CYNTHIA Petion and EDDY Petion with the lawsuit if we can't locate them?
Yeah, well, there's luckily the law thinks of these type of things. The law thinks about defendants who's what's called secreting themselves, avoiding service of processes, avoiding accountability. You can serve them by publication. You can serve. There's a host of other ways. I mean, so there's ways to serve them without actually physically finding them or serving them. I mean, like for example, it's the most ineffective way of serving a person, but the law allows it. The law allows you to say, well, if I can't find you, and I've tried, I am authorized to put the fact that the lawsuit has been filed against you, the notice of the lawsuit has been filed against you in certain publications, like for example, in Miami is the Miami Law Journal, and you publish the notice that the lawsuit has been filed against you, and that under the law is considered proper service.
Obviously, so there would be so, and listen, I would be very, very surprised if Cynthia Petion and Eddie Petion did not know about your lawsuit, because the lawsuit was filed, if I remember, February 5th.
Mm-hmm.
At about I got the notice at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my time. I'm in the West Coast, and then in the morning, the NOVATECH website were taken down. NOVATECH website was gone. So obviously, you accomplished a lot. You
think they don't know that the lawsuits? You think they don't know that they're in trouble? You don't think they don't know the FBI is looking for them? You don't think they don't know the FTC is after them? Of course they do. They have to. They have to know. You know. And look, you can secret yourself all you want. Look how long it took to find Osama bin Laden. They found him though. Mm-hmm. That's the one. They'll find him. They'll find you. They'll find you. I mean, it might take a while, but they'll find you. I mean,
the FBI always get their men. They're gonna find you.
Always get it.
No, always. I mean, and people don't understand that this Eddie Petion and Cynthia Petion will be found. I mean, they will get arrested eventually.
Eventually, of course, eventually they will be. I mean, it's just a matter of time. I mean, it's you can only hide so much. And look. I don't want to say too much. I'll just leave it at that. Eventually,
no, absolutely. I know that you guys conducting your own private investigation. Right. You got some great investigators, and I do hope that they get caught. And of course, there are a lot of people, 553,000 people as of June 2020.
Occasionally I answer the phone. Like for example, when somebody calls and then they call back and they call back. And I see the number popping up, I'll pick up the phone. And I've heard so many horror stories about people mortgaging their houses, emptying out their 401ks. I mean, look, it's heartbreaking. But Ponzi schemes, they sort of prey upon, and I hate the sound. I swear, it preys upon the people wanting to get something for nothing. Preys upon, and please, anybody, don't take this wrong way. It preys upon the human nature of quite frankly, greed. Mm-hmm. I mean, because any person who rationally sits there and thinks about it, they will think, well, gee, 144%. I've never heard any return like that in the history of investing. Maybe even the mafia probably doesn't. Again, even the mafia doesn't get that kind of return.
Well, because here's what I think. What people are saying is that the crypto world, Bitcoin, it's vast. I mean, thing goes up and down all the time. Yeah, and they said, look, somebody had made a comment earlier that people routinely make 20% a month, like trading on their own. And that is all well, fine and good if you do it in yourself and you can sustain the loss, right. And that is good. But when you're taking somebody's money, it's not your money, it's somebody else's money. So it's different. Why? What you have to tell them? Because, for example, people said, well, I heard some people say, well, I don't think NOVATECH ever promised 3%. Well, that's not quite correct. I think they did promise it.
They did promise it. It's all over the place.
And people are saying that. So to me, it seemed that people have to be very careful, Attorney Morris, in terms of where they invest their money. We're not knocking crypto. We don't think it's a bad thing.
I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I mean, look, if the people who took their money, their cryptos, and sent it to NOVATECH and left it where it was on the legitimate platforms, they'd have made money. They wouldn't have made 3% a week, but they would have made money. Because I'm sure, like, you remember last year, the bottom fell out of crypto, went all the way down to less than 20,000. And look what's happening now. It's 68 last time I checked.
68,000, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, so if they left their money there, they would have made some money. So, look, you got to be very, very skeptical. Again, go by the old adage. It never fails. If it sounds too good to be true, chances are it is.
Mm-hmm. Now, there is a question from a viewer. She says, based on your experience, Attorney Morris, what can we expect to recover in terms of percentages?
It all depends. Listen, it all depends on what you wind up recovering. There's going to be a formula. It's going to be if let's say, for example, let me give you an example, right? Let's say we collected $100, right? And one guy invested $2, another guy invested $5. So you could say, okay, so now we've got this $100. After you take out the costs and attorney's fees and all that stuff, let's say we left with 70 cents, right? So the guy who invested 2 cents, he gets 0.2%, whatever it is, of the 70. The guy who invested $5 gets 0.5% of the 70. That's how that formula generally works.
So in other words, there is no, it all depends on what.
It all depends. It all depends on, because everybody has to recover something. You can't just give one guy 100%, make one guy 100% whole, and tell the other guy, well, sorry, we can't get to you. It has to be across the board. Otherwise, that's what class actions are all about. Otherwise, the court is not going to approve it. You can't say, I'll just pay one guy and not pay the members of the class. Everybody has to be accounted for.
So everyone has to have someone. So Betty, the answer to your question is that you will get something, but at this point, maybe too early to decide what the percentage would be. So in other words,
it's way too early in the game. It's way too early in the game to start thinking about what percent you're going to recover and whatnot. I mean, it all depends on what the recovery is.
Now, with regard to the federal investigation, will that somewhat interfere with your lawsuit?
Potentially. Like we have an experience with the MNEFX case. Once the FTC got involved, they put a stay in prosecuting any claims against Eddie Alexander or MNEFX itself. We suspect the same thing is going to happen here. But at some point that stay is going to get lifted, like it did at MNEFX, and we can put them back in a lawsuit. But that doesn't negate our ability to go after the enablers, and based on how we decide to change the complaint by amending it, that doesn't affect the other defendants in the lawsuit. But it's quite possible, yes, the FTC can put a stay and tell us we can't go after the principals and the companies right now. But somewhere
in other words, as the FTC, if the FTC were to bring a case, then we want people to understand this, and that's what I'm going over it. If the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, were to bring a case against NOVATECH, Cynthia, and Eddie, which I think they will.
They will eventually, yes.
They will eventually. So are they going to ask the judge to not to stay your lawsuit, but at least to not prosecute a civil case against Eddie?
It's very possible. As a matter of fact, it's highly likely. That's what they did in the MNEFX case. So we had to say, okay, we're not pursuing a claim against Eddie Alexander and MNEFX at this moment. So we dismissed that claim without prejudice. You can always bring it back once the stay gets lifted. So it's possible. That's very possible. Actually, it's highly likely this is going to happen. But it doesn't affect the overall lawsuit.
Well, because there are a lot of other people who may not be arrested.
Yeah, and that is the other thing. That's the other thing. The other thing is, to the extent, let's say, for example, the FTC files a claim against the principals and the companies, and they cut a deal and they gave up some of the Bitcoins like Eddie Alexander did. That in and of itself is not going to be sufficient to make people even close to becoming whole. And that's the pitch we made with the MNEFX case. You're better off going the civil route as well, in conjunction with relying on what the FTC does as far as appointing a receiver and marshaling the assets and collecting Bitcoins and cutting deals with the principals. It doesn't hurt you to go on both umbrellas, because it maximizes the amount you're going to get to be able to recover.
Right. We have a question from Sophia Lane. She said that the people who already recover money from withdrawals that are higher than the initial investment, will these people have to return money back, or will they also be part of the lawsuit? In other words, if somebody invests $1 million and they made $2 million, are they going to return some of that money back?
Well, how about this? It's the same thing. People say, look, I've got, I invested $10,000 and I draw out the $10,000. Now I've got $200,000 sitting in an account. It's my profit, but I can't get to it. Well, quite frankly, that's not probably the defendant we're looking for, or the plaintiffs we're looking for, right? Because you've in the law has a concept. You can't double dip, right? You can't. Let's say, for example, you get in an accident and you get in an accident. You're riding a bicycle and 2 cars hit you, right? And they're determining, okay, tell you what, you have $100,000 worth of damages. 2 cars hit you, right? You can't say, the law wouldn't allow you to say, okay, since 2 cars hit me, I want 100 from you and 100 from you. No, the law doesn't work that way. The law says you get 100,000. That's it.
Right.
No matter how many people there are. So if you don't have what is called damages because you recovered the money you put in, and the only thing you're complaining about is a profit that you should have gotten at some point, but you gotten back your principal, yeah, the law's going to say, well, you know what, you're not really damaged. You're not.
But
really
are you going to go after the people who actually receive more money than they invested?
But that's not the
Because
plan.
that's something, you know, that's a legitimate question.
It's a legitimate question, but that's not the plan right now.
Okay, all right. So that's not the plan right now, guys.
It's not.
Absolutely. So
now, of course, if these same people were the enablers, then maybe that's the plan, right?
I mean, the enablers you're talking about.
If they were the serial scammers or the serial Ponzi schemers, if these are the people you're talking about, now that's a different issue. But to the extent a regular guy goes in, puts his 10,000 in, and was able to pull out back his $10,000, no, not that guy.
So no, if you made your money, just be happy you made money, but know that you took somebody else.
You're one of the lucky few.
Now, there is another question from a Navy Stubblefield. She said that they filed the form online, but they haven't gotten a response from the law firm yet, either through email or
this is the law firm speaking. We have been inundated with calls and emails, and I don't even know the numbers of people who've gone to the website, willmorrislaw.com, to register. We're going to get to you. We promise we're going to get to you. We're in the process of streamlining it. We're in the process of having a company that reaches out and start reaching out to people directly, either by email or by phone, and have them sign retainers and whatnot. But we will get to you because we're gonna need your information as far as what your wallet was in order to track these Bitcoins down. We're gonna need a lot more information from you, but we will get you. Just have a little patience.
Right. There is another question. Somebody says that if they were to get a return, would that money be returned to them in US dollar or in Bitcoin?
So, you never heard of that old adage of putting a proverbial cart before the horse? It's a good problem to have, but
it's a good problem to have, yes.
Get there first. Let's get there. I can't answer that right now. Let's get there first.
I mean, it's a good problem to have. If you get to that point,
listen. If I have to make a decision whether or not to pay you in US dollars or Bitcoins, that means we've done something right. Right?
That's when
we win. We've done something right.
Our problems.
Right.
So we've got a couple of more questions, and,
sure.
And I know we've been at this for over an hour, and I did say almost an hour. We got another 13 minutes left.
Okay.
I'm trying to. Somebody says, "What assurances do we have that we're not getting jacked up again?" This is a question. I don't know what that person mean by that. This is.
I'll tell you this.
I don't know what you mean by that, but I guess you're thinking about getting scammed again. I guess that's what she's asking. That what's the likelihood?
I don't know what other assurances I can give you to tell you this. I am a member of the New York bar. I'm a member of the Florida bar, and if I jack you up, my whole livelihood goes. And I intend to die a lawyer. So I don't know what kind of other assurances I could give you. I mean, here I am. Okay, let's think about it. Let's think this through, right? I'm a lawyer. I decide to file a lawsuit to get back monies from people who have been scammed. Okay, so what's my incentive to scam them in the process? Not only that, I'm spending my own money to do it. I'm not asking anybody to do it. So where is the scam?
Oh no, the person is. I don't know. I mean, that's the question that they ask. I'm not. I don't think she's saying you're scamming her. I think she's wondering what's the likelihood she's gonna lose. Nobody's asking anyone to pay anything, so it doesn't really matter. You're not putting any money.
If I'm not asking for anything and I'm spending my own money, that's the worst scam artist in the world I've ever heard
of. Somebody says, "Are you looking for any volunteer that have law background?"
Oh, please get that person's resume, please.
Yeah, Sophia Lane. I'm sure you heard Mr. Morris You can
Listen,
email. You can email him. His email is there. So we always looking for people.
Always listen. If you did she just say she wants to volunteer?
Yeah,
Oh,
she said she
well,
wants to
then there you go. She's hired.
I think she's. I don't know whether she's in New York or Florida. We have another question. The question is how does your law firm get paid? Somebody asked that question.
Well, it's a straight contingency. If I don't collect monies for you, I don't get paid.
Right. So if you hear it, guy, if it's a contingency case, just like, for example, if you get into a car accident, you go to a doctor, you go to a lawyer. If they collect money, they get paid. If they don't collect anything, then nobody gets anything. So you have nothing to lose.
No, better than that. Let me just explain something. If I don't collect for you, not only do I not get paid, you don't owe me anything.
Yeah. And I understand that your firm had already spent a lot of money, thousands of dollars, to get investigated in the case. So obviously, if you didn't believe that this case could net something, you probably wouldn't do it.
I do believe in the altruistic value of helping people. I truly believe that. However, what I do, this is my business, this is how I make a living, right? This is what I do for a living, right? So, I mean, I'm not going to take on something that, doesn't help me or just doesn't have a possibility of putting some monies in my pocket, because after all, that's what I do for a living. So the fact that I am ahead of time, without asking anybody for anything, funding this and making sure that this thing moves forward, I mean, that in and of itself it should be suffice to allay any fears that I'm trying to scam or I'm trying to do anything untoward about anything regarding this case.
Yeah, I don't think anybody suggested that. But this is also something that affects your community, our community.
Absolutely.
Because I understand that, and somebody mentioned this to me today, a few hours before the interview, that some 50% of the people who have invested in NOVATECH are of Haitian background. I did not know that.
That's a big number.
50%. That's a big number. So, which means that out of the 552,000 people that the last count, at least 250,000 of them would have been of Haitian background.
See, yeah. But see, it boggles my mind. Listen, I was married to a Haitian woman. I understand the Haitian culture, right? And as skeptical as Haitians are, I sit around and I try to analyze. Now, what would cause a person, and I'm not ostracizing or singling out Haitians, for example, I'm just using it as a thesis. What would cause a person to then take their hard-earned money, buy some Bitcoins, and then send it off to somebody without doing one bit of investigation? I know it took really 5 minutes to figure out that this thing it stunk to high heaven. What would convince a person to do that? And I've concluded there's a couple of reasons why. And the primary one is they listen to people they trust, right? And who sometimes they trust the most? The pastors,
right?
Family member, and maybe the person has a convincing story to give them. Maybe the person has a proof to show them that, look, I'm making this kind of money, and you can too. But it has to be something, and I just don't want to say it's human nature. I just don't want to just shuffle it off to that. It has to be something deeper and more deep rooted and more, affiliation, some sort of person with the same affinity. It has to be something like that convinces a person to do that and then to be scammed and lose all their money. I mean, we've heard the horror stories of people, taking out all their 401k.
No, but somebody, I think Sophia Lynn just made a comment saying that these were people trusting people from their own country. So there's some kind of cultural affinity to saying,
that's what makes a Ponzi scheme work. Affinity. Right. You know what I mean? You gotta have. There's a couple of things you need. You need some sort of funky new thing going on. Crypto falls perfectly into that. Nobody understands it, but people are making money, so it's like a haven for scammers.
Mhm.
Then you need some people who got monies right up front, who can brag and boast. Look at me, I'm making 3% a week. You can do it, right? You need that, and then you're gonna need somebody to say, affinity, association, same culture, same heritage, your pastor, your preacher, your doctor, your next door neighbor, somebody who can you put faith in, you know, somebody who you say, you know what, this person is a man of God, he's a man of the cloth, he's not gonna be involved in something that's
Untoward.
untoward. He's not gonna do that. And if he's suggesting it, that means it's on the up and up.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's the hallmarks of a Ponzi scheme.
No, I mean, but absolutely, and there have been so many crypto Ponzi schemes. I mean, tons of them. This other guy,
It's the
Ed,
most it's the
there
most
is,
popular one. It's the most popular one since the pandemic. And in the last year, it's up 33%.
yes, I mean, there's so many Ponzi schemes, so many Ponzi schemes. People are getting arrested every day for Ponzi scheme. Ed Zambati, a guy who was one of the three principal in crypto, crypto program,
FTX.
crypto program.
Okay.
That was another sort of Ponzi scheme, and he just got picked up in the Netherlands not so long ago, getting extradited to the United States. But this was hundreds of millions of Ponzi scheme, and people from all over the world are losing money. I know that you have you been talking to other people from outside of the United States about.
Oh, I've gotten calls. I've gotten emails from Africa. I've gotten emails from Australia. I've gotten emails from everywhere. You know, it's this thing was international. It wasn't just limited. You know, I'm surprised that the numbers you have are saying 50% were Haitians. It doesn't. I mean, I'm surprised it's that big. I'm not surprised they were that involved. I mean, that they were involved. I'm surprised the numbers are that big, but it's just not limited to Haitians. It's limited. It's just all over the world. It's international.
So people are just getting scammed all over the world, and
All over the world. All over the world.
it's
And the thing about it is, you know, you want to talk about these platforms, for example. You know, I mean, a guy in order to buy Bitcoin, you have to have some sort of platform, as it be a Coinbase, you know, even Cash App, crypto.com, whatever it is. You got to have a platform to buy it on, right?
Yes.
And people were being allowed to take their monies out of these platforms and transfer them out to NOVATECH, even though these platforms should have known the places like Russia and Canada and several states in the United States, you know, Wisconsin, Washington State, New York, all these places have been warning people that NOVATECH is a scam. And they've been putting cease and desist orders against NOVATECH, telling them to stop doing what they're doing because it's illegal and it's a scam. So, you know, it sort of begs the question whether or not these platforms or these individuals who traded on their platforms to buy their crypto owe them some sort of duty to warn them. Listen, you know, we have reason to believe that this NOVATECH is a suspect thing. It's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme, whatever. You know, please do not, trade your money or send your crypto coins there at your own risk. But just know we have reason to believe there's a problem.
I believe
some sort of warning had to be given.
I think that's a very good point, because two things. Number one, I remember that Russia, the country of Russia, sent out a notice saying, hey, NOVATECH is a scam, because the Russians have investigated it and they determined that it was a scam. And this was back in late 2022 or
22, yes, 22.
2022.
All these notices came in 22 and early 23.
Right.
Everybody said in 22 that, look, this is a problem. You should stop doing this. There were fines levied against NOVATECH and its principals back in 22. So yeah, at least in 22, there was warning signs everywhere. There were like blaring red lights that this is a problem. So I do think, and we're looking into that, I do think there's some sort of duty. You know, I mean, there's got to be some sort of duty.
Yeah. So I have someone who said that the although that they were doing business with NOVATECH, but NOVATECH used a third-party organization to receive people's money. So and people said that to me, and I said it doesn't really matter, because as long as you'll trace it to wherever the money goes, it doesn't matter whether the company was.
It's a parent. It's a subsidiary.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to look at the look at the questions that people are asking. So somebody was asking that what the percentage of how much would your law firm would get paid if you recover something?
Well, the recovery is governed by the rules of the local bar. There's a sliding scale, there's a percentage that it depends on how much you recover. It's all stated it's going to be stated in the retainers. It's going to be stated in standard from the Florida bar, no more or less. And,
Right.
and it all depends on how much you recover. You know, if let's say, for example, normally, if in normal cases, if a case settles before a lawsuit is filed, the bar allows you to get 33% of the recovery plus your costs. If a case is settled after a lawsuit is filed, the bar allows you to get 40% plus your costs. Now it slides up, like say if your recovery is over $1 million, 10 million, there's different scales. I don't remember all off the top of my head, but it's all regulated by the bar.
And also, I think in a class action lawsuit, it doesn't really matter what the attorney asks.
Exactly. That's the other point. That's a good point. The other point is this: everything once the class gets certified, that means you go to court and you convince the judge that look, this has to be a class action lawsuit, and the judge says yes, it's a class action lawsuit. Get certified. You can't spit on the sidewalk on that case without the judge having to say so on that. The judge has to have approval of every single thing, and if the judge thinks you're overreaching and it's unreasonable, he's going to tell you so, and he's going to fix it. So I, notwithstanding, I say the caveat of the bar regulating how much you get. The caveat to that is the judge controls it.
Right. Somebody has a question. The question is, if NOVATECH comes to court and shows proof of trade, how would that show proof of trade that this wasn't a Ponzi scheme? How will that affect the lawsuit and the ability for us to get our money back?
Yeah, I'd like to see that. That's a hallmark of a Ponzi scheme. There is no investment. There's no legitimate investment. The monies are being paid out from monies being brought in. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's a Ponzi scheme. There's no legitimate investment. So yeah, I would like to see those receipts of those transactions. What they were trading. I'd like to see that. I guarantee you there's none.
Well, I mean, that's if I was advising Cynthia Petion right now, my advice to her would have been, come to court, come to Jesus, do the right thing, because the longer you wait, the harder it becomes for you eventually. Because if the FBI had to find you, number one, they'll never let you out of prison. It's not going to happen. Once they get you, you're not getting bail. You're not getting out. You're staying in prison. That's it. But if you come, you say, hey, listen, maybe this was a misunderstanding, although I don't believe it was.
I don't think it was. Look, if I were her lawyer, I'd be like, listen, Mr. FBI, let's negotiate a surrender, and let's negotiate the terms right here, right now, before she comes to see you. Here's what we have. We have this money over here. We're gonna give that to you. We're gonna negotiate a deal. I don't want any problems. And boom, boom, boom. And negotiating and be done with it. That's what I would do. Because listen, it's to me there's no dispute. There's not one scintilla of evidence to me, as far as I can tell, that this was a legitimate investment opportunity. Because I don't think.
But not only wasn't legitimate, Attorney Morris, but Cynthia Petion had violated every single state, every single country.
That's the other thing too.
I mean, she's got other legal problems.
That's separate and apart from the Ponzi. You've got failure to register. You got failure to register your company and yourself. Because if you're taking on people's money to invest on their behalf to give them a return, you personally have to register, not only federally, but sometimes state and sometimes both.
Right. I have another question for you. Sophia Lynn asked, how was the named plaintiff chosen on the New York class action lawsuit filing? I guess she's saying, why those plaintiff? I guess that's...
Well, look at it. When we filed the MNEFX case, we had, I don't know, 15, 20 plaintiffs, named plaintiffs.
Right.
Being a named plaintiff, all it does for you is you have to, your name is up there and you have to actually sit down right off the bat is properly sit for a deposition. It really doesn't matter in a class action because everybody's in the same boat. If the class action is certified as such, the fact that your name is not on the lawsuit means nothing. The fact your name is on the lawsuit means nothing. Everybody gets treated the same way.
Exactly, because I think that they saying why isn't my name? I invested 200,000. This woman only invested 10,000. So guys, it doesn't really
Maybe
matter.
he was the first guy who came to me.
Yes. So guys, it doesn't really matter how much money.
It matters not.
Rest assured.
Rest assured.
$10 and be the name plaintiff. It really doesn't matter.
Right. Rest assured, it's because your name is not on it. If you register, if you lost money because of NOVATECH, you're a member of the class. And if you registered, we're going to contact you. We're going to get all your information. We're going to make you sign a retainer. And that's that. It'll cost you nothing to do it. And that will be that. We sit down and let the legal process grind its wheels slowly towards justice.
There was a question, what kind of evidence that the investor need to send to your office to prove that they invested in
wallets for starters. You know, I mean, the wallet information. The wallet information is going to have all the transfers you made from your Bitcoin platform to NOVATECH. That's for starters.
Okay, guys, you heard it. Send your e-wallet address, any type of information you have about e-wallet address belonging to NOVATECH, because NOVATECH has to use an e-wallet in order to get your money.
And again, while transferring Bitcoins is not like spending $1. You know, I mean, if you go to the store and spend $1, that dollar is lost in the system. You can never identify it. Bitcoins are a bit different. The blockchains make sure that every transaction is traced backwards and forwards, and there's a record of everything. So when you transfer your Bitcoins from your platform to the e-wallet of NOVATECH, there's a receipt of that. If NOVATECH then transfers it out to somebody's personal account, there's a record of that. So yeah, for starters, your e-wallet would suffice. It'll help us trace.
Is there a cutoff date for people to register on your website?
No, there's no cutoff date. We've been inundated with calls and emails. We're in the process of streamlining a process of contacting people individually, getting their information from them and their e-wallet information. But as you can imagine, there are thousands and thousands of people to get to. We'll get to you eventually, but there's no cutoff date to register.
So in other words, there's no cutoff date to register. There is no fee to register. And once people registered, are they getting an email saying, hey, we received your registration. Thank you very much. We'll follow up with you.
We're working on putting that together. That's what we should have done. We didn't do it. It's our fault that we didn't do it, but we're working on getting that fixed. But rest assured, you will get contacted. Somebody's going to physically, either by email or by telephone, somebody's going to contact you shortly. Just please be patient.
Yeah, because people are very.
I understand. I understand. You lost. Listen. If I lost $10, I'd like a dollar bill just to find it.
Somebody asks, how do I get my e-wallet address when the NOVATECH platform is shut down? Now, I can tell them, this is what I can tell them. Your e-wallet address is going also to be in the platform where you purchase the Bitcoin. Whether you use crypto.com or Cash App or any of the crypto platform, you have to provide them with an e-wallet address for them to transfer that Bitcoin. And when you're doing the transfer between your e-wallet and NOVATECH, you need to have NOVATECH e-wallet address. So
absolutely,
you're asking that question. Somebody's asking, how do we get it? It's there.
You have it. You do have it.
Just look at look at your email or the website that you use. I don't know.
Look at the platform you use to transfer it. That'll provide you with your e-wallet, and it'll provide you a history of all your transfers out.
Exactly. Perfect. So we have 7 minutes. We did say an hour and 15 minutes of your time, and I know you're a very, very busy man. So I thank you. We have 7 minutes left. Let's take the rest of the 7 minutes to kind of wrap up. We're giving a lot of information here. So to wrap things up a little bit, the lawsuit has been filed in the Southern District of New York in Manhattan. and I believe the judge is Judge
Vernon.
Vernon.
Mhm.
And you've said that your law firm will amend the lawsuit because of new information that you've gotten
That's correct.
since you filed it.
We plan to do that. I think we've given ourselves a deadline of the end of March. Yeah.
End of March to
amend the lawsuit. Yes.
To amend the lawsuit. And then the people should continue register on the website www.willmorrislaw.com.
That's correct.
And then they could fill out the form, they answer all the questions, and they can email all the evidence that they have invested in the mini FX.
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm just going to wrap up for everybody because I know people are coming late and they are asking the same question that were asked before. Guys, just scroll up. You will see the answer to all the questions you asked. People also ask, how we're going to find, Eddie Petion and Cynthia Petion. You address this. It's not going to be issue. The law provide mechanism to serve the people that are hiding from service. So that's not going to be a problem. Okay. So guys, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. I know people ask so many questions. It doesn't matter whether you're in Brazil, whether you're in Argentina, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, France, Spain, wherever you are in the world. If you want to be part, if you invested money, you eventually will be part of the lawsuit. Now, Attorney Morris, something I want to clarify for everyone, and I want you to talk about this. You have the named plaintiff who signed retainers agreement with your law firm to represent the class. Now, the people that haven't signed a retainer with you, are they your client or they're not your client?
They are. They are. Let's put it this way. Okay, it's a tricky question. They've registered. The law says before. The attorney-client relationship is a tricky thing. Sometimes it occurs when you least expect it. Sometimes you just talk to a person, and sometimes the law will say you have an attorney-client relationship. In this particular case, here's what I'd like to say. I'd like to say if a person got on the website and registered, I think there's a strong argument that they're my client.
Right. So in other words, once they registered, whether they sign a retainer agreement, they automatically become. I mean, the law would look at them as a client.
The law would look at it as being my client. Yes.
Okay. So guys, you heard it. Just sign up, and when you sign up, someone from the law firm would eventually get back to you. That's what you need now at this point to do. So, Mr. Morris, now I know you've done a lot of litigations, but your law firm also do some other practices. What are some of the other practices you do? We've got 2 minutes.
Okay. So we do a lot of criminal defense. We do a lot of personal injury, a lot of civil litigation, some immigration work. We even try to do some family work. So it's like a full service law firm. Even though I have a team of people I work with that get things done, even though I'm otherwise busy with these class action lawsuits and dealing with that. It is a full service law firm. If I can't handle what you have, I know somebody who can. Very
good, very good, very good. Well, guys, there you have it. Mr. Morris, I thank you so very much for taking the time.
Well, Mr. Professor, you're doing a yeoman's job over there, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate you having me on your show. Thanks.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. Somebody got to do the work. Somebody got to help someone.
Yeah, I see.
And I enjoy helping people, and I thank you so much. I mean, you're doing the heavy lifting. I mean, class action lawsuits are not easy. They're expensive. They're time consuming. Believe me, I know. So I don't, I thank you so much, and I think people should thank you because nobody has to pay anything for you to try to help them get their money. So somebody say, may God bless you. So thank you so much, Gloria March. God bless you for the work. Well, we come to the end of our show. It's we got 2 minutes left. I thank you so much. All right, you have to come back, I guess.
Listen, when I have something to report, when there's some movement happening that's worth taking up your time, I will come back.
No, absolutely, absolutely. There, guys, you have it. This has been an interview with Attorney Will Morris of the law firm of Morris Legal. And Mr. Morris, has been talking to you guys for about an hour and a half. If you have questions, please feel free to email him at Wilm, WILM, at morrislegalfla.com. So please don't forget.
Why don't you type it in the chat?
Yes, I am typing it in the chat for people to see it. And of course, guys, be patient. Send out the information. This is a long process. I know someone just asked a question, how long it would take before this case is over. Nobody knows.
I don't know. It's not going to be a year. I'll tell you that. How about that?
No.
Litigation is a fickle and unforgiving animal, and sometimes she bucks when she doesn't, when you least expect it, and sometimes she rides smooth. I couldn't tell you now how this ride is going to be.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Morris, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
This has been The Professor. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you later. Stay safe.